Hello again. Another story here from the Lakota Way by Joseph M. Marshall III. This story is going to illustrate the virtue of love, to place and hold in one's heart. This is the story of the Cottonwoods. Cottonwood trees can be found along the rivers and creeks in Lakota country. They are tall and strong and live long lives. In midsummer the breezes play with their leaves, rustling and rattling them until they sing soft, joyous songs that everyone, four-leggeds, wingeds, crawlers, and two-leggeds, likes to hear. Songs that can soothe a troubled mind, soften even the hardest heart, or heal a broken one. This is a story of two cottonwood trees who began their lives as something else. Many, many winters before the white man's steamboat brought the running face sickness, or smallpox, up the great muddy river and killed off almost 2,000 Lakota in the year 1837, two young people met at a summer gathering. She had just gone through her woman's ceremony, and he had just counted his first victory against an enemy. She had beautiful dark eyes, and he was straight and tall. They couldn't keep their eyes off of one another. Many evenings he stood with her in the soft folds of an elk-hide courting robe, just outside her family's lodge, as her mother kept a watchful eye. Hiding beneath the robe, the young couple exchanged soft kisses and whispered promises. And at the dances, when the rabbit and round dance songs were sung, she would pull him into the dancing circle. They would dance side by side, moving together step for step as if they were one person, their gentle voices blending in song with softly pounding drums. Everyone could see that the hearts of these two young people were only for each other, and the old people marveled at how their two voices together seemed to rise as one. It was only a matter of time, everyone was certain, before White Lance would take the gift of horses to the family of Red Willow Woman to ask for her hand in marriage. The summer gathering ended, and the two young people reluctantly parted. White Lance rode away with a promise that he would gather many horses. Summer passed, and autumn came. Red Willow Woman's village was camped near Turtle Butte, while White Lance's people were many days' ride to the north near White Earth River. He had ridden with several war parties against the Arikara and the Crow, and distinguished himself by fighting bravely. On one raid he single-handedly captured 12 horses that, of course, were part of the bride price for Red Willow Woman's family. Leaves turned color and were falling when her village moved just north of the Sandhill country to hunt buffalo. It was there that White Lance found them. He and two friends drove 18 horses into the encampment, but his soaring heart fell to earth like a wounded duck, his dreams crushed by Red Willow Woman's own words. With tears flowing, she told him she had been promised to a young man named He Crow. He was from a respected family, and she was honor-bound to do her father's bidding. White Lance had never known such a feeling. The pain in his heart took his breath away. He could not think clearly, and his very spirit seemed to curl up inside him like a lost child. Out of shame and confusion, he sent his friends away and rode aimlessly for several days and nights before he returned north. Back in his own village, he hid in his mother's lodge and would not eat for days. In the spring came word that He Crow and Red Willow Woman had been wed. When he heard that, White Lance took his pain and frustration on the warpath against the Crow. On the battlefield he acted recklessly, not seeming to care whether he lived or died. He Crow, meanwhile, learned that while Red Willow Woman was everything a wife should be, and their lodge was always neat and orderly, her heart and mind seemed to be elsewhere. The following spring a daughter was born, but that only seemed to divert Red Willow Woman's attention even more. To cover his disappointment, He Crow rode out often to hunt, and accepted every invitation to take to the warpath. Time passed. Many winters came and went. White Lance and Red Willow Woman saw each other once every 4 seasons at the summer gatherings. Both of them knew that everyone was watching and acted with the utmost propriety. though it was plain to anyone who knew of their situation before that nothing, not even time, could weaken what they truly felt in their hearts. In time, White Lance took a wife, Good Medicine, the widow of a friend killed during a buffalo hunt. He became father to her son, but she understood that while he was a good provider and a dutiful husband, his heart would always belong to another. More winters passed, and White Lance won many war honors, and many men rode with him when he led. He was sought after as a man who gave wise counsel, and he became a leader in peace as well as war. But many, including Good Medicine, saw that he was alone often. In those moments he was seen to be staring off, as if into another time or another place. Like every good Lakota mother, Red Willow Woman was devoted to her children, for now she had a son as well. But she, too, whiled away many quiet moments staring off to the north, especially during summer evenings. White Lance and Red Willow Woman seemed to live for the summer gatherings, when they would have a chance to talk for a few moments. Each asked politely after the other's welfare and how it was with their families, but in their eyes a light would shine, and they both seemed to come alive. Neither White Lance nor Red Willow Woman dishonored their marriages or acted contrary to what was expected of them. The price of honor was to give up true happiness, but each had paid the price with heartbreak. But He Crow and Good Medicine had paid a price as well. It had not been easy for either of them. During one summer gathering, He Crow sent word to Good Medicine. They met secretly and talked. That autumn, long after the summer gathering ended and when the villagers had finished their buffalo hunts to make meat for the winter, Good Medicine asked White Lance to take her to visit her relatives, who were encamped to the south. Likewise, He Crow announced his plan to visit relatives to the north and invited Red Willow Woman to accompany him. The morning after the first night of the new moon, both couples left their villages. They traveled alone because all their children were now grown. After several days, White Lance and Good Medicine arrived at a certain place near the Smoking Earth River, a place where hunters often camped along Horse Creek. Good Medicine said she wanted to make camp there for a few days. He Crow and Red Willow Woman arrived a day later. It was awkward, but the couples were happy to see one another. Near the end of that first evening, as cool breezes crawled along from the northwest, warning of a hard winter coming, He Crow did a strange thing. As they all sat in the light of a crackling fire, he tossed a stick to the ground and spoke to Red Willow Woman. "That stick is you," he said. "I cast you away. You know that in our ways a Lakota husband can cast away his wife by doing so. I have my reasons for this, but now you are away from me. You are free to go where you choose." Red Willow Woman was stunned. Before she could speak, Good Medicine also did a strange thing. She brought White Lance's belongings out of her lodge and placed them in the ground near the door. "I give you your things," she said to White Lance. "There is no longer a place for them in my lodge. You know this to be a Lakota woman's right, to cast out her husband in this manner. I have my reasons. You are free to go where you choose." White Lance was stunned. After a moment he and Red Willow Woman understood what was happening. "You are the man in her heart," said He Crow to White Lance. "You should be the man in her life, and you shall be." "And you are the woman in his heart," Good Medicine said to Red Willow Woman. "Take your rightful place with him, as you should have been allowed to do long ago. You have both done your duty. Now you must follow your hearts." The next morning Good Medicine took down her lodge, and He Crow promised to see her safely to her relatives. That night White Lance and Red Willow Woman came together as man and wife, 25 winters after they first had met. They lingered in the valley of the Smoking Earth River for days, walking along the river even in the last leaves of autumn floated to the earth. The world seemed new to them. The sky never looked so blue, and the call of the high-flying geese no longer sounded like a sad song. Like the sun chasing away shadows, every new moment together chased off the memories of what should have been. Their hearts soared like hawks on the winds. The first cold gusts of winter chased them into the sheltering gullies near the great muddy river. There they pitched their lodge, and White Lance hunted so they could make meat for their journey to Swift Bear's village, many long days to the northwest. One afternoon he returned from the hunt to find the lodge empty, the ashes in the fire pit cold. Red Willow Woman was nowhere to be seen, and her horse was gone too. With a little daylight left for tracking, a worried White Lance grabbed his weapons and set out. It was not long before he found her footprints over a set of hoofprints. From the tracks it was plain that Red Willow Woman was trailing her horse. Snow began to fall, lightly at first, as he followed their tracks. As the afternoon wore on, the snow became thicker and thicker. Soon White Lance could not see any tracks. He began to call out her name, shouting over and over again. Daylight was fading. He knew it was very near sundown. The snow covered the ground and hid the sky. There was nothing but whiteness. Then he heard a faint cry, a voice carried by the wind. White Lance ran toward the sound, and soon dark shapes appeared out of the whiteness, and his heart pounded like a fast drum. One of them was Red Willow Woman, huddled on the ground, the snow beneath her red with blood. Over her stood an angry and powerful bear, with blood on his claws, roaring as it turned to face White Lance. As a cry of anguish and rage, like any angry summer thunderclap, rose from his chest, White Lance ran and thrust his lance. It went true and pierced the animal's great chest, but the beast was powerful, and he fought back. Its sharp claws slashed and slashed until White Lance was covered in his own blood. But he stabbed with the lance again and again, piercing the bear's chest each time. The snow turned red with their blood, and the cold air was filled with their bellows of rage and pain. They fell almost at the same heartbeat. The great bear finally weakened by the final thrust of the lamp deep into his heart. But he had ripped open the throat of his killer. With his last remaining heartbeats of life, White Lance crawled to Red Willow Woman and took her in his arms. She summoned her waning strength to pull him close, so they walked into eternity together as husband and wife. 2 summers were to pass before a group of hunters found their bones near the shore of the great muddy river. 2 skeletons were entangled. Nearby lay the bleached bones of a bear, and a point of the lance embedded inside his ribs. It was not difficult for the hunters to imagine what had happened. They also saw 2 cottonwood saplings growing side by side in a grassy slope near the water, as if growing from the same root. Their families placed the bones of White Lance and Red Willow Woman on the same scaffold. As the years passed, the saplings grew into tall, sturdy trees, their branches twisting around each other like hands interlocking fingers. As more seasons and years passed, people would come to sit under the 2 cottonwoods, and in their cool shade they told the story of 2 young people, she with dark, beautiful eyes, and he who stood straight and tall. As the story was told, the breezes rustled the leaves of the 2 cottonwoods until they sounded like 2 gentle voices blending in song, 2 voices that rose as one. Several years ago I went to the great muddy river, now called the Missouri. I went there alone. I had lost someone dear to me, a friend whose own life was only just beginning when it was taken from her. I walked those shores and watched the rolling waters and recalled the story of a woman with dark, beautiful eyes and her warrior who stood straight and tall. In a grove of young cottonwoods I rested in the shade. There was no way to know if I was near the spot where the 2 cottonwoods had stood, but I had heard that long after the 2 trees had fallen they were taken back into the earth. Their stumps could be seen. I found no stumps, but I could hear all around me the rustling leaves of the young cottonwoods coaxed by gentle breezes, and I thought I could hear voices singing. Perhaps it was only my broken heart yearning for comfort, but it was easy to imagine that these young Cottonwoods were the children of those two who stood so long ago. My heart wanted to believe because there was something soothing, something full of promise in the songs of those two young Cottonwoods. Thank you.